What is up, everyone? Justin Parnell here, and today, Wilds of Eldraine releases on MTG Arena, and with it, Enchanting Tales, one of 36 reprinted enchantments from Magic's past will have a guaranteed slot in every Wilds of Eldraine booster pack. My most played Arena format is Historic Brawl, as most of you know, so today we're going to be looking at the top 15 Wilds of Eldraine cards that are going to have an impact on that format. You know, I keep saying Wilds of Eldraine, and no doubt there's going to be a lot of great new cards to impact Historic Brawl there. But as you'll come to see, Enchanting Tales is the real star of the show, and there's a bunch of new cards that are going to have an everlasting impact on Historic Brawl. And if you want to get your hands on your own Wilds of Eldraine and some Enchanting Tales, check out the link below in the description. Without further ado, here are the top 15 cards from Wilds of Eldraine and Enchanting Tales for Historic Brawl. Many have lauded Moonshaker Cavalry as the white Craterhoof behemoth, and it's easy to see why. Both have large bodies, cost 8, and give your entire team a huge boost, but the differences are notable, and part of the reason I think the Cavalry won't be nearly as ubiquitous a finisher as Hoof. Cavalry lacks haste that Hoof has, and while flying is most of the way to trample as far as dealing damage goes, it does allow other flyers to get in the way of your biggest threats. But the biggest reason is, and let's be real here, a white 8-drop and a green 8-drop aren't the same. Green flies to 8 mana, while white has to get there one turn at a time. If you have access to both colors and one slot, the Hoof is going to win out most of the time in deck building. And we haven't even mentioned Elishnorn, the current and most likely better de facto white game ender. That doesn't mean that Cavalry is bad or won't see play, but those that are expecting the next Craterhoof may be disappointed. Let me tell you how much I love Grave Pact. As most of you know, I love to sacrifice my own creatures, and punishing my opponents for assuming they get to keep their creatures when I graciously give up mine is exactly my jam. Black token decks will slam this card until the end of time, and some decks without as many tokens but a decent bit of recursion will probably do the same. You'll be safe if you just don't play any creatures. I'm going to put these two cards together since they're going to appear in the same deck like 95% of the time. They're basically twins. They're both enchantments, cost 1 and a red, care a lot about creatures. You know, one of them cares about them coming, one of them cares about them going. Personally, I'm going to play a ton of both of these cards, especially with Goblin Bombardment being yet another one of my favorite cards of all time. Any tokens heavy decks, heck, even tokens medium decks, will be trotting out this duo, so you best protect your neck and your life total. Knight of the Sweet's Revenge might look like a gimmick, but I assure you, the power is oozing right out of the cake monster on this one. With Lord of the Rings, alongside Wilds of Eldraine, we've picked up a major amount of food making. Turning all of your food tokens into better Mox Emeralds is a big deal, all caps, because generally, no one is out to destroy them, unlike so many mana-making creatures that frequent the Historic Brawl format. Even with just the mana-making ability, this card would be an honorable mention. The fact that it can turn into a massive pump effect for your whole team isn't just flavored text or icing on the cake. It's the most likely way to put your opponents into a food coma. Did I hit the pun quota for this one? Yeah? Okay, good. Yeah, I'm sure you expected Necropotence to make the top 10, right? Look, I'll be honest. From a raw power standpoint, nothing's going to beat Necro. One life for one card, as much as you want, is the seal of a lifetime, just as it's been for almost 30 years. So what is stopping Necro from dominating? Well, 3 things in my mind. Alright, well technically 5, because the first 3 are Pip, Pip, Pip. 3 black Pips. Necro is tough to cast, no doubt. You either need to be mono black or nearly mono black to even consider this card. Reason 2, or 4 if you're keeping count at home, while Historic Brawl can be an emergent ultimatum fest, fans of this channel will know that historically aggro decks just flat out beat most other decks. Life matters and is a precious resource, so you need to make sure you have enough of it fast to avoid catching a beatdown unexpectedly. And the last reason, you don't get the cards until your end of turn. This means in most cases, you won't get them to make a major impact on the game until your next turn, which combined with the other reasons can mean that Necro can occasionally be too slow to matter. Is Necropotence the card most likely to get banned out of all the cards on this list? Even considering all that? Probably the second most likely. you'll have to wait until the end of the list to see the most likely card. Bitterblossom makes the list as yet another of my favorite cards of all time. The reason it comes in at number 10 is it's an inherently fair card, especially compared to some of the other Enchanting tales coming to Arena. Bitterblossom is obviously going to make waves as a token-focused card, but I expect it to be another card added to the ranks of generically powerful black cards that we seem to consistently get every set. And unlike some of the cards both in the honorable mentions and higher on this list, I expect Bitterblossom to just be in a massive amount of decks. It's powerful, popular, fun, and not overwhelming compared to some of the more combo-oriented cards we'll be getting with Wilds of Eldraine. While White has been picking up more and more card draw, Enchanting Tales inclusion in Wilds of Eldraine brings the original White card advantage engine in land tax. While there's no scroll rack on Arena yet, there are plenty of other ways to take advantage of adding 3 lands to your hand every turn, like Harnfell, Horn of Bounty, Teferi, Master of Time, or even Zombie Infestation. All of these benefits are in addition to hitting your land drops each turn, avoiding one of the quickest ways for a concession while fixing your mana in a multicolored deck. Thinning your deck by 3 basic lands of any type isn't nothing, and after a few activations, it really starts to impact your draws. Just remember to put enough basic lands in your deck in the first place. So why isn't land tax higher? Well, the elephant in the room is the fact that you have to be going slower than your opponent's land production, so there are some caveats if you find yourself on the play. Just know that if you play a land tax when you're ahead, some people might smite you and avoid playing unnecessary lands to deny you 3 more. Because of that, it's generally better to play it when you can guarantee at least 1 fruitful upkeep. Sneak Attack is a card that quite literally cannot play fair. The request this card makes of you is, what is the biggest, nastiest thing you can put into play for 1 red mana? Ulamog? Worldspine Worm? Grizzlebrand? Usually, the goal is to end the game the turn you activate Sneak Attack for the first time, so that's what you should expect when you play against it. And look, we already have Purphoros Bronze-Blooded as a commander, but let's be honest, the difference in an activation cost of 3 compared to 1 for Sneak Attack is astronomical. But still, the fact that this isn't a wholly new effect is what keeps Sneak Attack low on the list compared to its upper power limit. Do you pay the 1? The Bane of Commander is finally on Arena, and it's destined to aggravate a whole new category of players. Much like Smothering Tithe, Rhystic Study will prompt you to make a payment every time an opponent draws a card. Though Historic Brawl is 1-on-1, the power cannot be denied. The speed of the format is faster than your average Commander game, but mana is often at a premium, positioning Rhystic Study in a sweet spot to provide a steady stream of cards. I do think Smothering Tithe is more powerful in Historic Brawl, but there's never going to be a time when you're going to be choosing between one or the other in deck building. Rhystic Study is going to be as much of a Historic Brawl staple as it possibly can be for a card that doesn't impact the board. White was gifted a piece of instant speed unconditional removal, and it's an uncommon to boot. High five your wild cards. Rightfully or not, Generous Gift is a widely played commander card, and while we don't have access to it on Arena, we did just pick up a realistically improved version. While Stroke of Midnight isn't going to make it in every single deck, Banishing Light and Friends have enchantment decks locked down, and Skyclave Apparition is the spirit for the job in a Blink and creature focused deck, Stroke of Midnight is an instant, and is ultimately the most versatile. I expect Stroke of Midnight to be a staple in all white heavy decks, even with your opponent getting a 1/1 human in place of their best permanent. Is the Irencrag flashy? No. Is the Irencrag exciting? No. Is the Irencrag going to be the most played card on this list? Yes. As every Historic Brawl player knows by heart, there are exactly 4 2-cost non-creature mana rocks available. Arcane Signet, Guardian Idol, Mindstone, and Cold Steel Heart. We now have a 5th, and even if you want to make the argument that not every deck that would want 4 would want 5 of these cards, which is an argument I'm not sure I agree with to start, it's tough to make the argument that it's not better than Cold Steel Heart and Guardian Idol, the pair of those that enter the battlefield tapped. And that's not to mention the bonus portion of this card. When you play a legendary creature, like your commander, you may have this turn into a 3/3 equipment. This is the safest call on the list, so why isn't it number 1? Well, the 4 remaining cards might change the format as we know it. In most sets, this would be number 1. The fact that I think that there are 3 more impactful cards than this is as telling as it is scary. You remember what I said about Tooth and Nail when Historic Brawl 7 came out? Can you think of a 2-card creature combo that you hate? Great. Well, Tooth and Nail loves those creatures. Loves them. How about 2 classic Praetors like Vorinclex and Jin-Gitaxias? Great. How about Hornet Queen and Craterhoof Behemoth? Yeah, apply all of that to Defense of the Heart as well. Sure, you have to ensure your opponent has 3 creatures, but there are a handful of cards that let your opponents create creatures like Clagbridge Troll, Iganjo Uprising, and Dowsing Dagger. But of course, most of the time, your opponents will do the work for you and will probably pay with their life. Almost every single card we've talked about today cost 4 or less, also known as the sweet spot for Beseech the Mirror to bargain itself into putting it right onto the battlefield. This card's power level is obvious, and it's going to be a major player in every format in Magic. I don't expect this card to be cast without bargain except in the most extreme of circumstances, so having token, artifact, or enchantments hanging around to give you that last boost will be necessary to make this work, hence it only being number 3 on a list of truly crazy cards. Seriously, Beseech the Mirror in a singleton format is amazing as long as your best cards cost 4 or less, a small price to pay for breaking a fundamental rule of the format. There is probably no card that needs less of an introduction than Doubling Season. The most commandery card that's ever commandered, it's finally on Arena, and it's a day 1 format staple. The madness this card encourages is renowned, so you should be prepared to remove it or your opponent as soon as it hits the digital table. Here's a brief list of things Doubling Season doubles. Treasure tokens, food tokens, tokens copied from Yenna, tokens copied from Cackling Counterpart, tokens from Mirror March, tokens from Scoot Swarm, barf. +1/+1 tokens, shield counters, loyalty counters, time tokens, indestructible counters, indestructible tokens. I don't know. It's just crazy, etc., etc., etc. Doubling Season gets crazier the more new Magic cards are printed, which is to say, it gets exponentially better every set. So what in the world could be more impactful than that? I truly do not have any idea why Intruder Alarm is going to be legal in Historic Brawl even for one day. All you need for this card to generate infinite mana is a creature you can return to your hand, a couple of creatures that make mana, even better if they make more than one, and an opponent who doesn't value their time. Or something that draws cards when you play creatures that make mana, and an opponent who doesn't value their time. Or a card that make creature tokens, creatures that make mana, and an opponent who doesn't value their time. Okay, the point is, those last 2 portions are the most important portions, and the rest, you can pick almost anything else and choose the way you go infinite. Does that make this a green card in earnest? Not entirely, as there's ways in non-green to do it, but it's certainly the easiest to pull off in green. If you see an Intruder Alarm hit the table, and your opponent doesn't pass the turn immediately, respect yourself enough and take your talents to a new game. If they do pass the turn, make sure you don't give them another opportunity to end the game as long as the Intruder Alarm sticks around. Remember, if you want to get your hands on some of these brand new Enchanting tales like Intruder Alarm, Doubling Season, or more, check out the link below in the description. Wilds of Eldraine and all of these crazy new Enchanting tales are live on Magic Arena right now. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this content, please throw a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. That way you don't miss any more Historic Brawl content, Commander content, or more in all of my favorite singleton formats that Magic has to offer. Thank you all again so much for watching. I'm Justin Parnell, and I'll see you in the Brawl queue.